Okay, it's 8:05 and something.
Because I
don't have my.
now we don't know anymore. Our whole day is ruined.
Yeah, now the one on the TV is 54, but it's not synchronized.
Wait. Our day is ruined.
It's ruined.
Ruined.
Why isn't your microphone on?
No, why?
There it is.
Okay.
Hello, I'm back. Yeah.
We have you for about 5 minutes, Bob.
Oh, okay.
I don't think Bob has ever done 5 minutes.
Well, we got to keep the schedule on time.
Yep.
Schedule.
I'm on a schedule today.
Bob.
Do you know where I learned how to say schedule, Bob?
Schedule.
England.
In shul.
In shul.
In shul.
Yeah.
All right, you two. All right.
And I don't have any sound.
Have you ever been to New Britain?
Just a prop today.
Have you ever been to New Britain?
Peter, get a hold of these people, will you please?
Negative. That's not my job.
Right.
We're getting it all out now
I just
because
keep the
I have
trains
3.
running on time.
We're getting it all out now because I have 3 candidates.
I know. We got to get going.
Ken's den here. Yeah. Well, okay. So what do you want to talk about, my friend? You're going to kick me out in 5 minutes. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do between
Bob,
now
have you
and then.
ever been able to do anything in 5 minutes?
No. That's a loaded question.
That's true.
That's a loaded question. At my age.
Come on, we're not going to start the age
All right.
thing.
You know, we probably just need to touch upon the fact that AHS 1984
American
probably the best season since Asylum.
You got to. You absolutely right. You don't know where it's going. It is gruesome, but it is easily followed. Every storyline is very interesting, but they all get sort of interwoven. It's not this helter-skelter business like Apocalypse was, or
right.
And
every week there's another twist.
Holy mother! It looks like they're going to kill everybody. I mean, everybody's going to be dead in this.
I bet you in the end, they all end up being like psycho killers or something like that.
I don't
Walking
know.
Dead.
I think you hit on it. I bet that this slasher thing turns into zombies somehow or other, or
because there's a character that keeps coming back.
Yeah.
Did they have zombie movies then, though? Because it's all that one year.
Well,
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not.
No, you do.
They've had zombie movies going back to the 50s.
Okay.
That's true.
What was that? Yeah, what was that big movie that had the zombie? The Walking, not The Walking. No, it wasn't Walking.
Night
Dead.
of
Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
See, there's hope for me yet.
So do you prefer like vampires or zombies or what was your favorite?
It's over for dinner or as
See, I've always been a zombie thing, and I never got into the vampire.
Yeah, I was a
stuff.
vampire.
I don't want anybody whose nose is going to fall off in the middle of a conversation. No. Sorry, no.
Yeah, so Bob was talking about some of the blood and whatever going on with the American Horror Story. Now, I promised you last week, you know what, usually we don't have that much. And then last week there was still a lot of stabby going around there.
Oh, there sure was. Oh, my God.
I told you, I tried to watch it. I watched the first one, and it was all that blood. No.
I actually had to turn away when they were taking this guy fell on a, let's just say.
A punchy stick.
Yeah. And they had to pick him up.
Oh!
Whoa! Gosh!
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, you saw last week's episode.
Yes, of course I did. Yeah. And so more surprises.
And you saw how the Night Stalker was lifted up by Mr. Jingles.
Yes,
and then something was rammed through his head to a tree.
Yeah. This is how he kills.
And then he falls off of it at the end of the episode.
Yeah. No.
And the episode ends there, so we don't know if he's going to come back to life.
No, we don't. No.
I'm leaving around.
No. You open your mouth.
You guys know how to clear a
You know, you've heard the expression, open your mouth, put your foot in it.
Yeah,
you open your mouth on an American Horror Story, and you get...
This is open your mouth and get a punchy
stake
through it.
Right,
a stake through
it. Stake through it. And we're not talking sirloin.
I think I'm going to go home and watch Cinderella.
Oh, God. Yeah, Laverne and Shirley, if you want to cleanse your palate.
So on a happier note, I've got 1 minute left to go.
Yeah.
Usually I have a club soda going here.
Yeah, what do you
And
got?
they didn't have any on sale, so they had this stuff on sale. It's Polar Seltzer, and it's Unicorn Kisses flavor.
Oh, James is going to love
Seriously?
that. James, hey.
Yeah, unicorn flavor, or Unicorn Kisses. And you know what?
Yeah.
It kind of
Does it taste like a unicorn has kissed you?
Don't say it.
It tastes
Don't
like
say
unicorn
it.
farts, maybe,
I
not
knew.
unicorn
Oh my God!
kisses.
You know the only people that see unicorns. Did you know that story? You know that the only people that are able to see unicorns are virgins, according to the myth. Yeah,
I've got
according to the
nothing.
myth. Yeah. No,
I've got nothing
I
to-
just wanted you to know that. James has decided that he's going to be a unicorn. He's got a unicorn costume for Halloween.
Fitting.
Yeah. Well, and we don't have any place to go. So if you see a horse with a horn on it walking through downtown, it is James. We'll
figure it out.
and me. I'm going to be. I know. You gotta love costumes.
I love costumes.
Yeah. Well,
And I'd love to keep talking about costumes, Bob, but your time is
I'm
up.
going off.
You have to get out and go volunteer.
And I've got to go see you at Pumpkin Fest, 12 noon to 6 o'clock this Saturday on the Green in downtown and on Elm Street. Thanks to everybody who's helped put it together. And the Harvest Market opens at 11 and goes to 6. And if you want to know anything, go on Pumpkin Fest 2000, hashtag 2000, westfieldonweekends.com, hashtag wow or hashtag.
Hashtag we're really out of time now,
Okay.
Bob.
Bye.
Bye.
Some people say a man is made out of mud. A poor man's made out of muscle and blood. Muscle and blood and skin and bones. A mind that's weak and a back that's strong. You load 16 tons. What do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. I was born one morning when the sun didn't shine. I picked up my shovel and I walked to the mine. I loaded 16 tons of number 9 coal, and the straw boss said, well, to bless my soul, you load 16 tons. What do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. I was born one morning, it was drizzling rain. Fighting and trouble are my middle name. I was raised in the canebrake by an old mama lion. Can't no high-toned woman make me walk the line. You load 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. If you see me coming, better step aside. A lot of men didn't, a lot of men died. One fist of iron, the other of steel. If the right one don't get you, then the left one will. You load 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Wednesday mornings from 6 till 8, it's Tina Gorman with Wake Up Wednesday.
Community Radio
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
8:15 in the morning. It is the 15th day of October in the year 2019, Anno Domini. Kenny Stomsky, Kathy Palmer are here, continuing with our candidate interviews during the month of October. This morning, I have three. We are starting off with City Council at-large candidate Rick Sullivan. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning.
All right, I'm going to have you just pull that microphone up a little bit more to you. These microphones
to block my face.
Yeah, well, I have three different camera looks on you, so we'll figure it out. Up first, we just really want to get to know you a little bit more before we really jump into the questions. Where did you grow up? What schools did you go to, and what do you do now?
So, by Westfield standards, I'm probably a carpetbagger. Family moved here when I was 5, but started kindergarten, went to Highland School, graduated Westfield High School, went on to Bates College, came back, went to West New England Law School. I opened up a private practice, Fallon and Sullivan, over in Springfield, and had a Westfield office as well. Did that for about 10 years. During that time, ran for city council. Was on the council back in 1990 through 93. Served as president for the last 2 years, and then ran for mayor in 93. Was elected in 94, so a while ago. Served for 13 and a half years. I will tell everybody that it is absolutely the best job I've ever had in my life. But after that 13 and a half years, had the great opportunity to go into Governor Patrick's administration, first as the commissioner of DCR, which is the Department of Conservation and Recreation, which most people know as the Parks Agency. Massachusetts, surprisingly, I think to most people, has the 9th largest park system in the country in terms of state parks. 450,000 acres and 250 individual parks around here. The only place it touches is at Hampden Ponds. So we certainly were involved in some water quality issues up there at Hampden Ponds. What the governor didn't happen to tell me when he asked me to take that job was it also was in charge of all of the parkway system, which around here people would probably know as the Longfellow Bridge, Storrow Drive Tunnel.
Okay.
And there was actually more road miles than there is on the Mass Turnpike under the DCR. So, yes, plus we're in charge of dams and well drilling and the Ernestina, which is the state vessel, which is a sailing ship. The problem was when I first came in, it didn't float, so we had to do a major rehab on that. But that was during the first term of the Patrick administration, and then the governor asked me to be the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs for the Commonwealth, which is a cabinet-level position, one of 8 in his administration, and that oversees 8 different agencies, 4 of which are environmental: the Department of Conservation and Recreation, DEP, which is obviously the regulatory agency on the environment in Massachusetts, fisheries, and agriculture. And then on the energy side, it was the Department of Energy Resources, which is really the energy policy setting board for the Commonwealth. So we did a lot with clean energy investments in particular and green communities. And then the DPU, which is the Department of Public Utilities, which regulates the energy sector, particularly gas and electric sides of the house. And then in the last 6 months of his administration, he asked me to come in and be his chief of staff with 2 primary purposes. One was to wrap up his administration and then transition to Governor Baker. And so we did that and then came back to Western Mass. Never moved from Western Mass, so we've lived here. My wife Lisa and I have lived here really all our lives, raised our children here. They all graduated from Westfield High School and went on to college, and all have careers and 2 grandchildren. So very committed to the community, but came back and I'm now currently president of the Western Mass Economic Development Council, which is a not-for-profit. It is not a government agency, so it's back in the private sector. Really focused on growing the economy here in Western Massachusetts.
Excellent.
That was long.
I took my whole half hour. Sorry.
Okay, you're done, Bob.
Yep. Okay, so let's start in on it right now. Why do you want to be a city councilor?
So first off, we are committed to the community, and I won't go back. And I say we, my wife Lisa, the family are committed to Westfield. Love Westfield. The community has been really good to us, and so I've always seen public service first as an honor and a privilege, but also as a way to give back to the community. And quite honestly, don't like the tone that is currently set on the city council and the personal and political agendas that are set by some on the council. I think it's ridiculous to have meetings that go to 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning as they debate the budget and then continue that and then talk about trying to do a 1/12 budget. That is not productive. It becomes personal. There's a personal and a political agenda as opposed to doing what's in the best interest of the city of Westfield and the community. And quite frankly, those types of actions where, you make cuts that late in the morning and then you go back and you reverse them a couple of days later, that's dangerous. Rating agencies, Wall Street, that set the bonds rates for the city of Westfield, they look at those kinds of things. Companies that are looking to come to the community and locate here or continue to grow here, or quite honestly, residents that are looking at the choices when they're looking to move into a community. They look at how the city conducts itself, how it conducts the city business, what the conversations look like. And right now, I just think it's time for a change of that. And I think it's time to get back to, everybody really rowing in the same direction, if you will, for the benefit of the city of Westfield.
I hear you.
Okay.
Kathy.
All right. I have my second question, and by the way, we want to mention we ask the same questions of every candidate. They all get the same questions. How do you increase commercial and industrial development in town in order to reduce the residential tax burden when nobody wants anything in their backyard?
So, that is obviously a dynamic and a balance. And I think, during the time that, I was mayor, we did have a lot of what would be new growth. But the businesses of today, perhaps unlike back, 15 or 20 years ago, they're looking at a whole package of reasons of why they're going to move into the community. And the biggest one is their ability to find a workforce. And I don't care which sector you're in. Whether you're in manufacturing or you're in distribution or, medical, it doesn't matter what the sector is. The biggest barrier to growth in our region right now is the ability to find a workforce. Find a workforce, retain a workforce, develop a workforce. And so I think you really be looking at and identifying how that workforce is being developed. And quite honestly, sitting here at Westfield Academy is an important pathway to producing the talent. When people talk about talent, they're talking about the students that are here, also at the high school. So I think the initiative by the superintendent of creating new pathways at the high school in, the medical field, in engineering, in let's see, I think the other one is culinary and hospitality, and also criminal justice. I think those are 4 pathways that have jobs and careers on the other side. It's a new initiative. I do happen to serve along with my son, who's a lawyer, on the Criminal Justice Advisory Board for the superintendent as they move forward. That's giving a pathway for our students for jobs that are here. And if you point back to again, Westfield Academy, working with Gulfstream and Westfield State University and creating the aviation program here. Those are really great jobs as the students matriculate through and graduate, and then there's jobs waiting on the other end. Many of them will be at Gulfstream, and in this first graduating class were at Gulfstream, but there's a lot of other things you can do in the field of aviation, which is a continuing growing field. So I think developing, which means you need to invest in that workforce. So you need to you need to buy the equipment. You need to have the teachers. You need to support the teachers that are providing that instruction. And I think that's really really important to be doing. So investing in that, and I do think the high schools and the colleges, and if you go just over the line into Hoyle Community College, they have gotten much better about being flexible about how their curriculums are set up and working with companies to create that curriculum and develop that workforce. So I do think that if you can get over that that significant and most major issue, we can be very attractive to companies, because when you put the rest of the package together in terms of our quality of life here in Westfield, our low-cost gas and electrics here in Westfield, our reasonable and competitive tax rates, when you put the whole package together between tax rates and assessments, so what their tax bill is, we are competitive. We do not lose and will not lose in the region, and certainly not in Westfield, when those whole packages are put on the table. But we really do need to address that workforce issue.
What is your stance on the public water supply? All right, do you trust the carbon filtration, or do you want to see an alternate source of water used?
So I put great faith in the science and the men and women that work every single day with that science. So whether that's our department heads here in Westfield, I have talked directly with the Department of Environmental Protection, so DEP, that are the people on the ground, but also their bosses. And to be clear, DEP was part of my jurisdiction when I was when I was secretary, so I have the ability to have those conversations at really high levels and check that science. And the active carbon filtration is what is the current and best science. There has been significant testing on well 2 that have all come back non-detect, not below the levels that are allowed, but non-detect, and that is the current and best technology. Going out and trying to find another one and paying somebody else to bring in the water to redevelop an entire new water system isn't necessary. And by the way, the science doesn't show that the sources of that are going to be any better or worse than what we currently have here in the city of Westfield. And never mind the expenses, or never mind how you're going to run it through lead line pipes and how you're going to do all that. So this is one of those ones that the debate of what is in the best interest, I think, is fine. But then ultimately there needs to be a decision made by the city council and the city, which they have done eventually. But you still have people that continue to vote no with no real other alternative on the other side that is going to provide safe, clean drinking water. And I don't think that there's anything that the local government does that's more important than education and public health and safety. And everybody ought to be able to get on the same page and have reasonable conversations, because some of the conversations in terms of what the spectrum, and there's over 2,000 different chemicals that can be on the spectrums that people are measuring for, and not all are necessarily measured by the DEP or others in the current protocols. But you need to be flexible and move with the technology that is out there is the best. And I do believe that, when you put our local and our state and our federal regulators and experts, they are the best sources of information. So, I think the mayor took a clear, bold stand based in science with expert opinion, and moved that forward. And with all of the early testing, and it's rigorous, has come back as non-detect. I think the pathway to get reimbursed ultimately by the Department of Defense is clear. It has already shown some results, as there's already been some monies that have come back to the city to be able to move forward on that. And that happened because there was a plan put in place by the mayor that ultimately did get enough votes. But there are still others that are out there to oppose that. And again, I think at the end of the day, this isn't all that dissimilar to a situation that arose back when I was mayor on wells 7 and 8, when we had contamination from fertilizers that had been used in farming, and you shut them down immediately, and you take it out of the water supply, because that is paramount to public health and safety. And then you look and you develop the filtration system, which we did. Those are back online. Those are the wells that serve my house in that area of the city of Westfield. Put them back online. You do rigorous testing on a very regular basis, so that you can certify that it's safe for the residents of the city of Westfield. And along with that comes a land protection program, because you need to protect the watershed, because all of this water just doesn't magically appear in a place. It runs through a watershed. So you want to be able to control as much as possible the land from which that runs. So you want to be able to try to control the watershed, because that's the only way you're going to be able to control the quality of the end product, is if you can control it all the way. So back when I was mayor, we bought additional properties around the wells in those watersheds, again, with best practices from the DEP, and that will have to continue. So that will be a continuing, ongoing expense. By the way, and I know I'm going really long on this question, but I think it's really important. Again, when I was chair of the board of the MWRA, which was part of the functions that I had when I was Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, for those who don't necessarily know who that is the largest supplier of drinking water in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Around here, they supply Chicopee and South Hadley. It's the Quabbin. And so DCR owned the lands of the Quabbin, and there was a regular, multiple times a year, we would buy additional properties to be able to protect the watershed. Because again, the only way you're going to be able to certify that everything is clean is the testing that goes on, the delivery systems that you build, and ultimately being able to control the lands of the watershed.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick. 8:31 and a half. We're going to go to underwriters. We'll be right back.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
Underwriting is brought to you by Boise Cascade Distribution, providing products and services needed for building material dealers, home improvement centers, and industrial customers. They offer everything from engineered wood and plywood to Drex decking and railing, James Hardie siding, and Advantech subfloor. Located at 33 Fowler Street Extension in Westfield and on the web at bc.com, they are committed to providing quality products, great service, convenience, and value.
Wednesday mornings from 6 till 8, it's Tina Gorman with Wake Up Wednesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
You want me to go? Okay.
That pointing, that finger that you know very well.
Well,
that's your cue.
I know, but it was your question. It's your turn.
No,
I don't want to
you're
take
next.
your turn. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
You want me to ask a question?
Go ahead. What is your position on charter schools coming into the city, particularly in the Root Road area?
Not a fan of trying to create a solution to a problem that doesn't exist, which I think is what you have on Root Road. Charter schools in general, I think the stated purpose of charter schools is fine in terms of providing quality education for students. I think that there are a lot of flaws in that. They ultimately end up costing communities money just because of the reimbursement rates. Now, I know Governor Baker's current budget and the current also the current education bill that's out there says that they're going to improve the charter school reimbursements. Obviously, that is something that we'll have to wait and see if that actually works. But there's no question, for every student that gets sent to a charter school, the community ultimately has a net loss of dollars. And how students are selected to go to the charter schools can be problematic in terms of, which students are going, and the students that are continued to be left in the public school system tend to be ones that, quite honestly are more costly to educate and have larger needs. And so, overall have not really seen the results from charter schools that I think have that investment.
Thank you, Rick. How do you increase money available for infrastructure? You keep the schools, police, and fire departments properly funded without overtaxing the residents.
So I'm going to go back, I guess, to my time as mayor, which I realize for many people is the very long past and don't know. But during the time when I was mayor, we had a roads program that invested in redoing the roads, and we would spend, depending on the given year, $1 million over and above. We, at the time, supported the public schools. We were $5 million over our minimum maintenance of effort, which was leading the Commonwealth. We totally rehabbed and grew out the fire department on the north side of town, added additional firefighters and police officers to those funds, and balanced that with the tax rates. I don't believe we overtaxed anybody. We made the investments. We made the investments in our water, which we just went over. We made investments in our wastewater treatment facility, which allowed our sewer lines to be expanded across the city, which are continuing today with construction. So there absolutely is a balance, but if everybody gets together and works for a common good, I think that can happen again. We went through what would have been 13 and a half years of growth in the city, 14 balanced budgets, and that tried to incorporate all that. It clearly is a challenge with municipal budgets, particularly when you're doing infrastructure. It's expensive, but it's what you have to do to be able to move the city forward. And I think that's really what the discussions ought to be at the city council. And, I had city councils back when I was mayor that everybody, at the end of the day, everybody was committed to what's really in the best interest of the city, and can work together. Not that we did not have disagreements. I mean, certainly when you go back and you look at individuals that serve, but you know what? At the end of the day, everybody could also be friends and have a civil discussion.
Okay. All right. Next question. What issues do you have, if any, to making cuts to the school budget?
I guess I don't think it's intended this way, but I think there's almost an implied result that the answer is supposed to be I would cut the budget, and I would not. I think it's certainly entirely reasonable to have a conversation about how the dollars are being invested and into what programs. And I mentioned the ones that some of the new programs that the superintendent has started, particularly at Westfield High School. But I think we have to also look at technology. They have a program now where the 7th and 8th graders get a laptop during the day. They don't allow them to take home, which I had the superintendent go, have you looked at some of the numbers from some of the other communities? And I know everybody's first answer is like, they'll be lost, they'll be broken. Actually, there's very low numbers on that, and that at the end of the day, allowing a student to take that home actually encourages them to get online. They can only do schoolwork on these, by the way. Go online and do additional homework or do some schoolwork on those. And maybe we ought to be having a conversation with the G&E about how we can provide free internet service for some of our families that do not have access to internet. And while I think some of us take that for granted in the city, particularly with the gas and electric and Comcast both providing service here, not everybody has the ability to have access to that. So let's talk about that. So I think at the end of the day, and I mean, again, you can go back, and I'm not going to change my colors. The hallmark of my administration was investment in education, investment in the professionals, which are the teachers that are in the classroom every single day, of what they need to do their job, and that will continue. And I don't think that there's anything that is more important for Westfield and, quite frankly, for the future. I've been a beneficiary. My wife's been a beneficiary of that system. My 3 kids all graduated from Westfield High School. They've all gone to great colleges, Bentley, Bates, and Quinnipiac. And they all have, professional careers now. They are all doing well, and it's because of the teachers that they had in the system. And those professionals, just like our other professionals in police and fire and water and the clerical and the support staffs, they all need support. So let's have that conversation. Let's not just go in with a meat cleaver and say, oh, we're going to cut $600,000 and aren't I great? But I'm not going to really tell you what I'm cutting. I'm just going to lop off a number. So if someone comes in and they say, hey, we're going to cut $600,000 or we're going to cut something out of the budget, ask them what that really is. And that's where I think that would be the hard choice. So the premise of the question is ultimately, let's see how we can deploy our resources in the most effective manner, but at the end of the day, supporting education.
Thank you, Rick. How do you control excess spending, or do you even think we have excess spending right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is a talking point of certainly some of the opponents, that there's just the excess, and they keep pointing to the waste, fraud, and abuse line in the budget, of which they haven't found it. And I think, quite honestly, the ridiculous exercise that many of them just went through in terms of those 2 a.m. meetings, making cuts so that they can tell the public, well, we just cut millions of dollars from the budget, and then have to sheepishly go back a couple of days later and put it all back in, because they weren't cuts that they could make in the first place. They were detrimental. There were contracts that were in place. There were requirements that certain things be funded, which they hadn't spent the time to determine where they could even make those cuts. So the reality is that I don't think that there's that, waste, fraud, and abuse line. Again, I go back to the answer on the school budget. Can we have a reasonable discussion about how those deployed, what the priorities should be? Because you can have different priorities. Mine's always been education. If you want to sit and put a different program together that moves the city forward, that's an absolutely reasonable, rational discussion that can happen, should happen, but there's a way to have that conversation. But to just make a percentage cut to a budget is really, quite frankly, cowardly, because it looks good, but you don't actually have to say what it's for. And so again, if someone were to come in and say, well, my goal is to cut 10%, I think the real question is, okay, fine, where? Tell me what it is, not just some number that is, faceless, a program that doesn't touch somebody. They don't have to talk about that. So, I don't think that there's a waste, fraud, and abuse line. I think, all of the mayors were required to submit a balanced budget, so it's balanced when it goes to the city council. Again, is it their job to review it, make cuts, try to reset some priorities? Absolutely. But the budgets that have been submitted are well thought out, and they're balanced.
Okay, quickly and without explanation or reasoning, Westfielder or Westfieldian?
You weren't ready for that one.
Well, it's
Tough
funny
questions.
because when I first ran
Without reasoning.
Oh, I can't. Westfieldian just sounds a little high and mighty, so I'm going to go with Westfielder.
Okay. You have 2 minutes to get up on your soapbox to shout out to the folks of Westfield and tell them why you deserve one of their votes for at large.
So, I obviously, as I took too long to introduce myself in the beginning, I do have a long history of public service. And I think that is, quite frankly, I think people that are in public service, that's an honored profession still. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't think that people that are in government, particularly any form of government, is particularly a noble profession anymore, but I think it is. And I think local government is a way to give back. And, quite honestly, the best jobs I ever had were when I was in municipal government. So, I will certainly personally like the job. But I have watched the conversation. I have watched the tenor of the discussion. And I think it's wrong. And I don't think it's in the best interest of the city. So I've offered myself backup for public service. And, I would be honored to serve again. And be somewhat of a voice of, some history on it, but I think also somebody that has been able to bring people together, have discussions, and get to a common goal and a common good. At the end of the day, Westfield has been really good. I think I've invested a lot of personal time, my family has, in Westfield, and cared deeply about Westfield and where it's going. And quite honestly, I just don't like the direction that's been set by some of on the city council. So, as my mother would say, you can't sit and complain. If you're gonna complain, you got to step up and try to do it yourself. So we're re-entering the fray.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick Sullivan, candidate for council at large. We got all of our time chewed up here. We did really good, right down to the exact second.
Well, after you told me to shorten it up,
All right, I have 2 more interviews after this. Pete, take me away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com.
Underwriting is brought to you by Boise Cascade Distribution, providing products and services needed for building material dealers, home improvement centers, and industrial customers. They offer everything from engineered wood and plywood to Drex decking and railing, James Hardy siding, and Advantech subfloor. Located at 33 Fowler Street Extension in Westfield and on the web at bc.com, they are committed to providing quality products, great service, convenience, and value. Underwriting.
Support for community radio on WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating. Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
Wednesday mornings from 6 till 8, it's Tina Gorman with Wake Up Wednesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
8:47 in the morning. It's the 15th day of October in the year 2019, Anno Domini. This is the Den, Ken Stomsky. Behind the mic as I am each and every Tuesday morning. I am joined by Den Mother Kathy Palmer.
Den Mother, I'm the senior. What?
Senior what?
Sure.
You stopped after you said senior.
I was going to say that I would be the senior example of behavior, but I'm not so sure that's a good thing with you, Ken. So never mind. We'll just chalk that up to nothing.
Well, I was nice, and after 2 years of being side chick, which you demanded, I upgraded you to Den Mother.
Den Mother. Ken's Den Mother. That sounds so much more royal. So much more exemplary. I feel important.
But deep down inside, everyone still knows that you're my side chick.
The side chick. Okay, moving along now. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning. Good
nice
morning.
to see you. Nice to be back.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to have our full morning. We have a full morning here of candidates coming in for interviews.
As we do next week and the week after that.
We do. So everyone out there, we don't care. Whoever you vote for, just make sure you get out there and vote when it comes time. Or you can't complain. Well, you could.
Well, you can.
I'll still complain, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But you'll vote.
I will vote, absolutely. And I also hear people say, well, you know, I don't have X amount that I want to vote for. You know what? I don't care if you vote for 2. There must be someone you can vote for.
Oh, it's always the same people and the same thing all the time. And if that's the case, take out papers and run.
That's right. And it's not.
It doesn't take very many signatures.
This time it's very different.
Yeah. Yeah. We're trying to exclude Ralph right now for the next 30 seconds or so that we keep everyone's time equal.
Ralph is here?
So that we don't appear partial. Because as we know, I am what's that moniker from that new station? Fair and Balanced.
Fair and balanced?
Or I could be fairly imbalanced.
I'll go with the fair. I'm not going with the balanced.
What about fairly imbalanced?
That's getting it. Actually, what we do try to do, though, is we do try to give the same opportunities to all of our candidates coming in. We have a set amount of questions. We try not to vary. We try not to extrapolate from the questions. We allow the candidates to do their own extrapolation as they see fit. Mm-hmm. But we don't give any opinions and we don't give any more information than we need to. How's that?
Until they come in to the show after the election, and then they'll
Well,
I'll get
then
in
they're-
there. I'll
then
get in
they're
their
fair
ear
game.
then.
They're
Yeah.
fair game then.
All right,
They know that.
8:50 in the morning. I have right now City Council candidate for Ward 2, Ralph Figge. Good morning, Ralph.
Good morning. How's everybody today?
Fair to Midland.
That's not bad. Michigan's a good state. Once in a while.
We have to keep decorum here and treat everyone equally. So I'll chuckle but won't laugh. Ralph, we like to get to know everyone before we get into the questions. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? What do you do now?
Well, I grew up in a small farming community in Ohio called Wauseon, Ohio. It's about 7,000 residents. I went to Wauseon High School, graduated in 1969. I just had my 50th high school reunion. And that was quite a trip back into memory lane. From high school, I went to Anderson University in Anderson, Indiana. I got me my college degree there, and then moved to the Northeast, moved to Williamstown, Massachusetts. And at Williamstown, I started working at Sprague Electric, and through their employee assistance program, I got a master's in guidance and counseling at North Adams State, which is now MCLA. Moving to Westfield, I continued my education up at Westfield State and got certification in special education and a couple other areas. So I've been around. That's where I grew up. My parents just celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary. So it's quite a weekend to go to Ohio. 50th high school reunion and a 70th wedding anniversary. I'm married to my wife, Susan, for 37 years, just last week. And we have 2 children, Dr. Sean Figge, who's in Omaha, Nebraska, and Lauren Figge, who lives in Springfield and works in Westfield.
Excellent. Thank you, Ralph. Why do you want to serve on the council?
I grew up in a household that felt that community service and giving back and volunteering was very important. So from an early age, we were with my parents volunteering at things, doing things. My father was a member of the Republican committee in the county, and so he set an example for us. When I went into college, I continued along the line, took a lot of political science classes, and found it really, I find government fascinating and how it was laid out. I think the forefathers, when they wrote the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, were light years ahead of where everybody else was. If we look at those 2 documents today, they're still living, they're still breathing, they're still working. And the separation of powers is just what I really focused on in college. So when I moved to Westfield and got married and we had kids, I started as the Abner Gibbs PTO president for 10 years, and then I got involved with the Blandford Ski Area for 10 years and was on that board of directors, and then continued that once I retired as a city councilor. So I like the idea of being involved. I like to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem, and I feel that what I can do in representing Ward 2 is to represent the citizens there and try to rectify any concerns that they have.
Okay. All right, Ralph, how do you increase commercial and industrial development in town in order to reduce the residential tax burden when nobody wants anything in their backyard?
That's a real tricky one.
It is.
And
Thank you.
I think your previous speaker kind of hit it out of the park with what he was saying on all that, and it's going to be a hard act to follow. But I agree with what candidate Sullivan was saying about the educated workforce. We have to continue to develop a workforce that can fulfill the jobs that are available at this point. And I think that goes to the whole idea of investing in education, investing in training programs, however and wherever they can be. Because if you don't have a skilled workforce, you're not going to increase any kind of development. There's only 2 ways to increase revenues coming into a city. And one is through development and new taxes that way, or through state and federal grants. Now, we're not always, you don't never want to base your budget on grants because you never know from one year to the other where they are. So developing industry and commercial properties is very important. I think that a dialogue needs to start very early on in the process. If a company is looking to come into town, the neighbors especially need to be informed as to where the location is going to be and what type of a company it's going to be, what are they going to do. And if you can build and start building consensus at that level, then when you get to the permitting process, which is very cumbersome in Westfield, which is another topic of discussion, you might have a better chance of getting it into somebody's backyard.
Okay, thank you, Ralph.
Thank you.
And please take your time with this next one. What is your stance on the public water supply? Do you trust the carbon filtration, or do you want to see an alternate source of water used?
That was one of the hardest votes we had to take, but I felt it was one of the most informed votes as a city council we took. It was on the $18 million bond. We had a wealth of information that was brought and provided. I'm not a water man. I'm not a chemical engineer. I'm not any of those. So I have to rely on the experts to provide me with the information. I'm very comfortable with the graduated carbon filters. I think that the evidence that was presented at the 4 council meetings when we had the 4 votes showed that the information provided by the experts, the people in our water department, the state people, the federal people, all indicated that this is the state-of-the-art technology at this time. Now, in 10 years, is it going to be? We don't know. But it was imperative upon the council to get safe water to the north side as soon as possible. The filters seem to be effective and also expedient and also expensive. Hopefully we'll be able to recoup some of those funds, and that's just started. The idea of an alternate source is a topic that should be discussed. It's a topic that has some possible merit, but it does have a whole lot of other issues that go along with it. So I think the biggest thing about the filters is there's 4 houses on Sandy Hill Road, and they had levels much higher than wells 7 and 8. And the filters that were put in there are the same type of filters that we're going to put on 7 and 8, and they're being very effective. There's been no breakthroughs on those filters. It's been over a year and a half. They haven't been changed. So I think that is one of the biggest tests and shows that, yeah, these things are going to work. So my feeling is that we made a good decision. I don't think it's going to be the final decision. I think in years to come, technology is going to advance, and there may be a better way to do it, and we need to keep looking for those ways.
Thank you, Ralph.
Okay. What is your opinion on charter schools coming into the city, particularly in the Root Road area?
As a retired educator, I've spent 25 years at Agawam High School in public education. I don't see charter schools living up to what they were supposed to be when they first were introduced into the state. When the charter schools first were introduced, it was an opportunity for innovation and new ideas to be developed, new techniques, and I don't see any of that happening. I don't see anything different between a charter school and a public school. I just see a drain on local resources. We, as citizens and a city, we must pay the tuition for these students that choose to go to a charter school. And so that takes money away from our public education. So I don't think the results are there where they should be. The state reimbursement is definitely not 100%. I think it's more like 45 or 50%. So we're losing money on every student that walks out the door. I don't think that the quality of education compared to the public education opportunities we have here in Westfield warrant a charter school in Westfield. So I'm not a fan of charter schools. I think that, excuse me, I think it's important to provide options to students, but I don't think charter schools are the way to go.
Okay, great. We are halfway through. Pete, let's hear from our underwriters.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com.
Underwriting is brought to you by Boise Cascade Distribution, providing products and services needed for building material dealers, home improvement centers, and industrial customers. They offer everything from engineered wood and plywood to Drex decking and railing, James Hardy siding, and Advantech subfloor. Located at 33 Fowler Street Extension in Westfield and on the web at bc.com, they are committed to providing quality products, great service, convenience, and value.
Wednesday mornings from 6 till 8, it's Tina Gorman with Wake Up Wednesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
We are back with City Council candidate for Ward 2, Ralph Figge. We are going to continue on with our questions. And right now we are up to, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 left. And one of them doesn't really mean anything.
I thought that was the most important.
All right. How do you increase money available for infrastructure, yet keep the schools, police, and fire departments properly funded without overtaxing the residents?
That's the balancing act we do every year in June when it comes to the city budget. We have a definite amount of money that we can spend, and we have to prioritize where we can spend that. And that's the delicate part of approving the mayor's budget. Now, the mayor and his department heads will put forth what they think are the priorities. Then it's up to the council to say yes or no to that, and then try to redefine if we don't agree with where the money's spent. To increase revenues in the city is difficult. If you don't raise taxes, you have to increase the amount of new growth that you have coming in. There's going to become a time when new growth isn't going to be possible. All the land and everything that can be developed will be developed. So it's tough, it's hard. It takes the ability to advocate for a program or for a department. It takes the ability to compromise and say a little here, a little there, and then we move here. As far as designated a specific stream of money towards infrastructure, I don't think is a wise move to go. I think that you need to trust your department heads and the budget, and then work through that process in order to distribute the money throughout and to all the stakeholders in the city. Everybody will say that their department's the most important, that they have to have all this, A, B, and C. I think you can see as part of the budget process this year is that a little bit was taken from a multitude of different areas. So it's really, really difficult. It's hard. You're up till wee hours in the morning in order to try to do what you feel in the end is what's in the best interest of Westfield.
Interesting. What issues do you have, if any, with making cuts to the school budget?
I've been the liaison to the school committee from the city council for the last 5 years. And in those 5 years, I've been able to, through working with various superintendents, especially this latest superintendent, to be able to present to the council a well thought out, a well derived budget to the city council. I have proposed the motion every year to accept the city school budget as presented, and it has passed. I am not a fan of cutting school budgets just to cut the budget. If there is a specific area where we can cut it, I think the school committee and the superintendent will do that. That's their job. The school committee is set to run the schools. The superintendent is in charge of the budget to the school committee. All the city council can do is approve the bottom line. We can't line item veto anything in their budget. So that being said, that being stated, we have to work closely with the superintendent and the school department, the school committee, in order to have input into their budget. And I've done that by going to all the budget meetings along. So in the end, I'm not a favor of cutting to cut for cut's sake.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. And you have plenty of time to get into this next question. How do you start to control excess spending, or do you even think we have excess spending?
That's a tough question because it starts on the premise that there's fluff in the budget. And the budgets I've seen for the last 6 years have not been excessive. They've been balanced, which is required by law. The mayor does a good job at presenting a balanced budget to the council to look at and to make suggestions or recommendations or cuts. Some councilors say that we've had $5 million in free cash the last few years, but that's not indicative of excess spending. What it shows is that through good fiscal management, there's money left over from some departments that didn't spend it all. But also included into your free cash is your hotel tax, your meals tax, and any collected taxes from back taxes. So there's a lot of different revenue streams that add up to that $5 million. So I think if we took all that out, we might have had $1.5 million that was left over.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be from a multitude of reasons. So I think one thing that might help us manage a little better is if we could get monthly statements of the expenditures, and we can see where each account is at. Now, the school committee does that every month, or every twice a month, every meeting. Ron Ricks will present to the school committee the budget where it's at, and it shows where they are, how much money they have, how much they spent, how much they have left. And I'd like to see something like that on the city side. I think that might be beneficial. But I don't think that there's a whole lot of fluff in the budgets anymore. I don't think there is any hidden pockets of money, stashed away for a rainy day. I think that we do a pretty good job of doing that. But I think we could monitor it a little better if we had some more technology, a little different look at things.
Okay. Kathy, you get the fun one now.
I get this. Well, he wrote on here that it's non-binding, but I'm going to counter his authority, and I'm going to say this is a binding question.
Okay.
And it is one of the most heaviest questions of the morning.
We don't care what he says, and we'll never hold it against him and never bring it up again.
Do you prefer the term Westfielder or Westfieldian?
Ooh, I think I like Westfielder.
Seems to be the winner.
I don't think anyone's said Westfieldian yet.
I think Westfielder has more of a ring to it, more of a, that's solid. Let's go with that one. So
okay.
All right. So this is the part of the interview where you get to get up on your soapbox and shout out to the fine folks of Westfield as to why you deserve one of their votes coming up on November 5th. I know we're going to have time left over, and in the email that I sent out to all the counselors, that happens every now and then, and we can just do free-form chat after that. I promise I won't hit any hot buttons or throw any hard balls at you. So, Mr. Figgy, this is your soapbox.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you guys for doing this. I think it's an important service that you provide. Excuse me. To the public. I sound like Dave Billups here.
Yes, you do.
I just like to say that Westfield's a city I chose to live in. I didn't have to decide to live here. I chose to. So I wasn't born here. I wasn't bred here. But I chose to live in Westfield and raise my family. My wife and I have two great kids. My son is a microsurgeon at the Buffett Cancer Hospital in Omaha, Nebraska. He's a product of the Westfield Public Schools. He went to Westfield High School, graduated, went to Siena College. From there, he went to the University of Toledo Med School. From there, he went to UMass Worcester for a 6-year residency as a plastic surgeon. And then last year, he was at Ohio State in a fellowship program to become a microsurgeon. And all that is because of the foundation that public education gave him. Westfield Public Schools prepared him to further his career to where he wanted to go. My daughter Lauren is the supervisor of science, technology, and engineering for the Westfield Public Schools. She also graduated from Westfield High School, went to Ohio Wesleyan University, received her teaching credentials. Then she went to work in a charter school on the south side of Chicago. She worked there for 3 years. And
Tough girl.
She is a tough girl. And I can debate the treatment of employees at charter schools till the cows come home, but that's time for another day. But she then went to Commerce High School for 3 years, then last year became the supervisor here in Westfield. During that period of time, she got her master's at Endicott College. So again, both of my kids have had great futures because of the education they received here in Westfield. And I can't say thank you enough to the dedicated teachers and professionals that we have in our public schools. Mm-hmm. So choosing to be in Westfield, then I chose to become involved. I feel that I'm a receptive person, that people can approach me, ask me questions, express their problems, and I really try to find solutions. If I can't solve the problem, I'll tell them, I can't do that. It's not within our realm. It's something we can't do. But the communications that I have with the residents of Westfield, I feel are good. I've had monthly office hours at the senior center to make myself available. My phone number's out there. The emails are there. So I really think that what a ward counselor does is a little different than an at-large counselor. Mm-hmm. A ward counselor is pretty much primarily focused on a certain area of the city, although we have to take the whole city into our consideration when we do make decisions for the city. I really love this city. I think this is a great city. I've had great success raising a family here, and I just want to keep that going. So hopefully someday my children will choose to live in Westfield. That's my hope. Whether that happens, who knows? Mm-hmm. But I really feel that I have been receptive and I'm approachable, and I can find solutions to problems.
All right. Thank you, Ralph.
Well, thank you.
All right.
I do have a question, if I might. And it's not going off script because I've asked other counselors that are running that have been on the show. Just to reiterate, with Ward 2, when you're running for a specific council,
all right,
if you could tell the people what Ward 2 actually is, because believe it or not, there are people who don't know what ward they're in.
Ward 2 basically starts at Mill and South Maple, and it comes up Mill Street to West Silver Street, and then it heads east. So you have that Abner Gibbs area.
Okay.
It also is along Main Street to the bridge, just before the shops start.
Okay.
And that goes both north and south in there. And then I cross the river and I follow Elm Street up to Notre Dame across to Mosley down to Union, and then back. So I have that little chunk up on the north side, and then I have most of it in the Abner Gibbs area, Meadow Street, that kind of area. So,
okay.
So that's Ward 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's got some downtown, it's got some business, it's got some residential, it's got some elderly, it's got some public housing. It's really kind of a mixed bag of everything. It's got a few schools.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it has one of the lowest voter turnouts at the elections.
It does.
Does it?
It does. It's the lowest.
Yeah.
And
it's, when I go to the poll,
mm-hmm.
5 o'clock in the afternoon, I look down and I see 170
right.
or whatever, and I'd like to see that improve.
Well, yeah, 2A has a lower turnout than 2B, and you're in 2A.
Yeah.
But I think one of the best things we did trying to improve voter turnout was consolidate both A and B at the senior center.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty of parking.
It's easier for me to walk to Fort Meadow.
Easier. Well, it would have been to Fort Meadow, but most people didn't walk to Fort Meadow; they drove, and it caused the traffic.
Oh, I can see that. Yes.
So, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, we are just about out of time. Ralph Figge, I want to thank you for coming in.
Well, I want to thank you again for having me. This is a great opportunity, and I really appreciate everything you guys do.
Excellent. Pete, I would like to do a very, very quick song and then do our underwriters, or vice versa, whatever you'd like to do. All right, I'm getting the thumbs up from Pete. Take me away.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your glad rags on, join me home. We'll have some fun when the clock strikes 1. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. When the clock strikes 2, 3, and 4, if the band slows down, we'll yell for more. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. When the chimes ring 5, 6, and 7, we'll be right in 7th heaven. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Oh, when it's 8, 9, 10, 11, 2, I'll be going strong, and so will you. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. When the clock strikes 12, we'll cool off, then start a rockin' around the clock again. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight.
Underwriting for WSKB's community radio programming is brought to you in part by R. Levesque Associates. They are offering landscape architecture, civil engineering, environmental permitting, and land surveying. RLA is a second-generation company devoted to excellence in the planning and design of outdoor spaces. On the web at rlaland.com or at 40 School Street in Westfield.
Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com.
Wednesday mornings from 6 till 8, it's Tina Gorman with Wake Up Wednesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Did you just hear that, Kathy?
What?
Pete bickering or barking. Yeah, it was barking.
He was barking?
It was trying to get my attention. You're going on. I always know when I'm going on. And then you start
Okay, so the first time you don't, I'll open your mic.
Oh,
and
we're over there.
and then you start to hear him. 5, 4, 3.
Well, he still thinks Bob is here, and he has to do that.
Oh.
Are you on here now?
Burn.
So we actually have Mary Ann scheduled 9:25 to 9:50. Or 9:55, so we can go to 9:20 to 9:50.
All right,
and that will keep us from bantering back and forth for the next 5 minutes.
Of which people would prefer not to listen to anything anyway.
Okay.
So
that we're there.
Not babble.
That we're there. Also, Marianne won't feel awkward with us just talking to each other.
If they plan to tune in at 9:25, public meeting.
Oh, goodness
Open
gracious.
meeting law.
Oh, goodness.
No, we don't have a quorum, so that doesn't matter.
I see these.
But
kids.
we're going to be replaying this,
Right,
and I post up on social media, and nobody wakes up to watch this
Should I put
anyway.
these on?
So
Wait,
it helps.
No, you said we had 23 followers.
23. Okay,
23. You
I
lied?
apologize to my 23 viewers.
Did you lie to me, Ken?
Ooh.
Do we not have 23? Did you?
I'm pretty sure it's
lie?
23.
I want their names. I want their numbers. I'm going to call them and say, "Do you get up at 8 o'clock in the morning?" I overslept this morning, Ken.
Oh,
you did. I knew that was going to happen.
So we are going to start a little bit early so that, as I said, Marianne doesn't feel just awkward watching us talk for the next few minutes. Because, we give everyone...
Well, I didn't know you were officially on the air yet.
Yeah, well, we give everyone the equal amount of time. So that's why because if I went 3 minutes extra...
Somebody
what is it, 30 minutes?
Yep. People are going to be watching the clock on that monitor.
Okay.
And they're going to go, you know what? You gave Marianne an extra minute. You're not.
They do.
You're partial.
They do.
So we're not gonna. And look at this. We'll go to 9:21. We are here with our interviews again.
Again.
All right, nonstop this morning. Currently, I have in here incumbent Ward 1 City Council and City Council candidate Marianne Babinski. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
How are you?
Marianne.
Beautiful day.
It is. It is. And actually in this studio we get to look right out and see it. So before we get into the questions, I always like to learn a little bit about someone. And I know everyone, but some of my viewers might not. So tell me, where you grew up, where you went to school, and what do you do?
Let's see. I grew up, born and raised in Westville, in Ward 1B, actually, on Prospect Street, on Prospect Hill. We were the great place to grow up there on that area. There's a lot of people, and it was crawling with kids. We had a great time, and never at a loss for finding stuff to do. So I was there for many years. I went to school I went to Holy Trinity Elementary and St. Mary's High School, and for college, Westfield State. Got my bachelor's degree in education at Westfield State, and went on to teach. My first year teaching was in Ludlow, actually, Mass, and then Baltimore, Maryland for the second year, and then I came back and started teaching in East Hampton at what was called the junior high then. And I loved it, and I stayed. People thought I was crazy. But it was a great experience, and I went on and got my master's degree in administrative education or education administration, and stayed in teaching for many years. I think for about 23 years or something like that. And then I got a job as a trainer in business. So I have had experience on both sides, the public and private sectors, and which gave me a great perspective on what happens in both levels. And when you hear a lot of people have issues or complaints about what happens in education, and the same thing in business. So that was good. I stayed there for many years. I actually moved to East Hampton for a couple of years while I was teaching. It was nicer to be there, for there's so many other things that were going on, to be close, to be available to the people that you were working with, and the students and the parents. And I was a town meeting member there for 1 year.
Oh, boy.
And I also was on the cable access board. I worked in the studio, so I had some kind of an experience with that. But I came back to Westfield, and I now live in Ward 1A. So I have been covering the whole of Ward 1 over the years. And so I don't know what more you want. I've been involved in a lot of things statewide and New England-wise organizations, working with a group, Westfield Concerned Citizens. Some of you may be familiar with that. I at one time took a leadership role with them before I became a city councilor. That led me into running for office because of the things and the issues that we were dealing with on the north side in that area. People were concerned, and we as a group were trying to push forward some of the issues and get heard down at City Hall, so to speak. So the next step was let's try to do something about it. I like to, if you see a problem, find a way to fix it, find solutions instead of complaining and blaming and all that kind of stuff. So,
excellent. You basically started to get into the next question here. Why do you want to serve on the city council?
Well, part of it was, as I said, that was a lead in to this question, I guess, not even realizing it, is that the Westfield Concerned Citizens, once I moved to that neighborhood in 1A, there were a lot of issues that were happening in the neighborhood. People were concerned about their quality of life, the air, the water, and we had tried to work with city government. And also, I was involved with some organizations across the state that helped communities get organized, and we would I would attend a lot of meetings downtown, not only city council meetings, but planning board, anything that was related to things that were going on in our ward. So we wanted or needed, we thought, a representation. We wanted somebody to be a voice, and we wanted to be a voice, a stronger voice for what was going on in our neighborhood or in our ward, both 1A and 1B. So took the opportunity to run for office. In the first year that I ran, I lost by 9 votes. It was a very close election. Actually, it was 11. There was a recount. So the next year, it didn't stop me, though, because I think even though I lost, I know some people run for election and then give up and go away. We were a group, and I'm not somebody who gives up and goes away easily. But I attended every single meeting, the city council meeting, except I was still sitting in the audience instead of on the other side of the table. But just to get a feel for what was going on and how everything worked. And you don't get a full picture of it until you take that seat on the other side of the table. So that's the interesting thing about it. So I did run again and won the next election. So to be a part of and make sure we could represent the people and the concerns that were in our ward, and also to help give people a voice. I want people to exercise and use their own voice. And that's part of what my mission was when I got elected, is to open a door for people to experience that themselves and stand up at the podium and learn how to participate during public participation, and it goes on from there. So I won that next year, and then I ran again last year, and this is the 3rd time that I'm running.
Excellent. Now, before Kathy gets to the next question, I just want to point something out. That thing you're hearing in your headphone, that noise?
Yeah, that's me. I actually didn't hear it.
Okay.
We do.
Okay.
Just bring that in case you've been wondering what that is.
That's why I keep my hands on my lap.
You need to put a pillow there. Right?
Yeah. Go ahead, Kathy.
All right. Marianne, how do you increase commercial and industrial development in town in order to reduce the residential tax burden when nobody wants anything in their backyard?
Nobody wants anything in their backyard. That used to be called NIMBYs, right? Not in my backyard. We were fighting that label for quite a long time when we were with Westfield Concerned Citizens, not in my backyard. And I used to have another name, it's called Janimbys. Glad it's not in my backyard.
Okay.
Because it is difficult, and I have always said too that we got the reputation sometimes on the north side because we have the exchange, the Turnpike Exchange there, that we are against business, but that's not true. Responsibly cited business, bringing more business in, the type of business you bring in. The people I have worked with and talked with on the north side, they're not against business coming in, but there is something that can happen that is a negative impact on the resources that we have up there. We know that we have a large part of the aquifer on the north side. We had been really aware of that for a long time. The people that I worked with as far as Westfield Concerned Citizens, this is one of their big concerns for years, is that the type of business that you bring in, and we're trying to get the message across to City Hall, let's say, before I even got elected, was that that there are businesses that you can bring that will not put a burden on that part of the city. Some people don't want something in their backyard. They don't mind it going in somebody else's backyard. But is that fair to the people on the north side who are overburdened? They felt that they were. I'm trying to address some of their concerns at the same time creating that balance, because the rest of the city wants more business to come in to help offset the tax burden. But I think there also is another side of it to think about. We need to get people together and figure this is a problem-solving thing. How do you satisfy both sides of it? Because what we don't take a look at, and that's what we feel on the north side, where we get overburdened with all of these businesses, or we've got trains, planes, automobiles overrunning the place, businesses that probably don't belong over an aquifer because we have zoning ordinances that restrict certain businesses to be there because we don't want to put the aquifer at risk. And so we have to balance that and think about, do we want to add all the more of this stuff that really will then create a risk for our natural resources that are up there, including the people? Because I come from the philosophy that we need to put people first. Whatever we want to put in, wherever we want to put it, what is it going to do to the people that live there, their quality of life? And if we can find something where they will be fit together, then that's probably a good fit. We had an example. I like people getting involved. There was a store, I'm going to say this because Pete's over there in the other room, Dollar General, we remember that that was coming in, and those people that worked or are part of Westfield Concerned Citizens, I like to bring it to people's attention if there's going to be a development that's going to happen in our area, because that's why I'm working with is Ward 1. And if they have any concerns or whatever about it, to get down to City Hall when those meetings are held, those public hearings, and voice their concerns. And they were not happy with the location that it was going to be. There, of course, there are other people who thought that was going to be a great place to have it up on Southampton Road. Well, it got denied at the location that they originally wanted to put it. But because people voiced their concerns and decisions were made and compromises were made and we problem solved it, it is now across the street. It was a better location across the street. And I think everybody was happy about that because that's what they said at the meeting. Somebody said, why don't you put it across the street, not on our corner? But there's other examples like that too. There's tons of examples that I have experienced over the last 4 years that I've been on the city council, because the best part of this job to me is meeting with the people and talking to the people and finding out what their concerns are and trying to help them out. Do we always get what we want? No. But we keep trying, and sometimes there's a compromise, and we have that issue. For example, truck industries coming in, which we can get into later on. It probably went beyond your question.
A little. We have 2 minutes for this one.
Okay.
And then we're at the halfway point already. What is your stance on the public water supply? Do you trust the carbon filtration, or do you want to see an alternate source of water used?
Well, only 2 minutes for this. I could take 3 days.
I know.
These questions these questions are, let's say, it'd be wonderful if we could solve them in a half an hour. But I have been involved with the water situations since the beginning in 2016, my first year on city council. And so I had a front row seat, as I said another time, to what the city was doing. They were proactive right from the get-go, even before we got the notification that we had to do something and notify residents that we were shutting off or had a problem with some of the wells. So GAC filtration, there's so much research that has been done on it. We had a lot of experts. I went with the city to some of the water department personnel out to Hoosick Falls to visit the water plant, treatment plant that they had out there, saw the issues. I'm not going to get into all the details with it, but I feel that I wasn't somebody just to accept what was happening. I wanted to find out for myself too. I like to research the information, get as much information as I can. I went to Mass DEP meetings in Boston, in Springfield, and I went to last year it's happening this year again in October, and I can't go because of all these things that are happening. 4 days, day and night, because at UMass they ran a conference that deals with the environment and issues that are with our soil and our water. They had people from all over. I never saw so many seminars, sessions, workshops on PFAS as I did. 4 days during the day and at night, workshops at night. It was like your head was ready to explode when you wanted to leave. But I left there confident that this is such a major issue that we were going to be able to come up with a solution. There are people that are creative and innovative enough there, and I know it's going to happen at this next one, that we headed in the right direction. Should we do an alternate? That was the next plan right from the beginning. I talked to hydrogeologists at BayPAC Barnes Aquifer Protection Agency, or so that met in East Hampton and involved the 4 communities that share the aquifer. They have a hydrogeologist that I spoke to. What would you do? He said, filter the water, don't go to Holyoke. And he had issues there, which I've talked about before. And should we go for an alternate? That's the backup plan. This filtering that we're going to do is working. It's worked in other communities. They're using it. You can't tell people that you're stuck. This is an issue that's not going to solve the problem. It's going to work out. I have confidence in that just from those research that I've done and the people that I've talked to. And should Westfield, after we get this all working, 7 and 8 turn back on, then we have to look at, that's why I'm working on the aquifer zoning ordinance, because we need to protect what we have going forward.
Okay, thank you. Pete, quick break.
One of our underwriters here at WSKB's Community Radio is Carson Center for Health and Human Services, a nonprofit organization located at 20 Broad Street in Westfield. They provided behavioral health and rehabilitation services in communities throughout Western Massachusetts since 1963. There are services for children, adolescents, adults, families, and couples. You can find them on the web at carsoncenter.org or at 413-572-4132.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Wednesday mornings from 6 till 8, it's Tina Gorman with Wake Up Wednesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Okie dokes, moving right along. We're back with WSKB with Ken Stomsky and Kathy Palmer, and we are introducing Mary Ann Babinski. We were talking to her this morning, and you are running for counselor in Ward 1. So your next question is, what is your position on charter schools coming into the city, particularly in the Root Road area? That's it. It's yours.
Well, so you want to address just to the Root Road?
No, not necessarily.
Well, charter
schools in general. We know the Root Road is dead
as an educator, as a former educator, and so I have some feeling towards what happens in public schools, and I think the schools, especially like we've got a lot of good things going on in the schools in Westfield. Could it improve? Of course, there's always room for improvement, and people have all kinds. There's always everybody out there. You're never going to please everybody all of the time. But if there are problems, then I believe that we can work them out together. That school came up, when was it, last year or 2 years ago, about putting it on Root Road. I don't think that's a good idea for that one. There's enough up there already. We have facilities up there that people are making use of, the pool, the gymnastics and exercise. They have the soccer fields. There's always issues associated with that. There's been an ongoing thing. Believe me, my phone rings a lot. I get a lot of calls about that. But the school up there, the reason it didn't go in, I mean, they were denied for the sewer. I think the Mass DEP denied it, and then the health department did at the same time. So they're probably going to keep trying. I don't know if there'll be a situation that could be created on that road that would make it okay to handle the traffic that would be up in that area, that road. I don't know if you've ever driven down it, but with the facilities that are there now, it gets pretty crowded. And now we have no parking. They have a parking issue. So it's probably not the ideal situation or not the ideal place to have it. I get concerned about the quality of life that those people up there in that neighborhood have.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
How do you increase money available for infrastructure, yet keep the schools, police, and fire departments properly funded without overtaxing the residents?
Well, we could do a lot of bake sales.
I hear you. I'm looking down at my belly as you say that. That's something I won't be able to contribute to. Sorry.
Well, so I mean, without. So we have a balance here again. I mean, and this is not something that is an easy question to answer in a couple of minutes or come up with a solution in it. Because when we come up to budget time and everything, I have that woulda, coulda, shoulda that I say to one of the counselors all the time. I'm not against looking at trying to control spending. I don't know if how much we can lower taxes or just control spending so they don't go crazy. But I think was last year or the year before, I printed out the budget that we went through because I believe we need to sit down and I gave this to some residents who remembered that a while ago or years ago we had a Taxpayers Alliance group of citizens that looked at the budget and would spend some time going over it so that they could come to meetings and then make suggestions about what they wanted to be cut. One person's trash is another person's treasure. So when you talk about what should we cut out of the budget, how are you going to get people to agree on that? Because some people see things as an important asset that we need to have, and other people say, no, that's being ridiculous. We've all taken care of our own budgets and our own homes. We know what that is, a balance between spending and what money you have coming in. I worked on one of the organizations that I was connected with. I was on their executive board, and I was the treasurer, and we had to work. They were nonprofit organizations. They depended on money coming in from donations or grants, and they had expenses. So it's a difficult thing. We got to points if they didn't get the money that they thought they were going to get in. We had a fund that was money that was invested in stocks and bonds. I dealt with a gentleman, he was actually in Whately, that was managing that for us. But sometimes we had to dip into that like we do in the city because we had unexpected things that were coming up. We didn't get the money coming in that we needed. So I think I would like to see something like that happen. It's not that I'm against looking at it and trying to control spending, is people have their opinions about what they want. Let's start it right after, let's say in September or even January. I'd be happy with is to have people sit down. There are communities that have done that. They let residents come into City Hall and they lay out you've got discretionary monies and non-discretionary monies as part of the budget. So you can't touch some of it because that's paying the bills. But the other money is the stuff that maybe we could control. And let people make decisions about it. It's amazing what happens. So, like I said, some people will say, no, I need that. We need that. What kind of services are you willing to give up? That's the other thing. People don't realize if you want to cut taxes, it's an easy thing to say, let's cut all this, that, and that. But there go the services. What services do you not want to have anymore?
Okay, thank you. And we have 5 minutes for 3 questions in the soapbox.
All righty, then I'll go quickly. What issues, if any, do you have with making cuts to the school budget?
again, it would probably just what I answered. I mean, the
Mhm.
thing is let's sit down and make a decision. Let's look at what actually is needed or not. The problem with the school is they have a lot of unfunded mandates too that they have to deal with and spend money on. I think it's easy to say we want to cut that, but again, you can't just make that decision in June. I think we need to get everybody together, sit down and working on it, and look at if we have excess, if there's spending that is not necessary, then let's work on it as a group. People, I hate to cut something that is very important things for the students of the city if we can avoid that. I mean, we've got, if you just look at the example of what's happening here at this folk school, I've been a very big supporter of vocational education in any school system. I think it's a great asset for the children to experience different things that they might be able to do as a career later on.
Okay, great. How do you control excess spending, or do you even think we have excess spending right now? Fluff.
I think.
Do we have fluff?
So there might be fluff. I mean, what fluff is if you think that there's money's left over because we budget for things and something happened and we had expenses we thought were going to be greater and they weren't. I'd like to have people define or give an example of what they think is the fluff again. As I said, one person's trash is another person's treasure. There may be spending, if you are going to make cuts or you think there's too much money being given to one area, then do you sit people down? How early do you tell them this is all we can afford to spend at this particular time? We do it in our own families. I can't take that trip to Hawaii because the roof fell off or something, whatever. So, uh-oh.
Just yawn. Okay.
And she overslept today, too, so.
I did. Thank you. We are up to our last question.
The fun one.
No, this is of the utmost importance.
Okay. And we
said it's non-binding, but you need to give it much thought.
And we will not think differently of you no matter what you replied.
You can tell, Mary Ann, relax. Do you prefer Westfielder or Westfieldian? Which term?
Westfieldian, that's a mouthful.
Isn't it?
Yes. Well, it's like Floridian.
I hadn't thought of that.
But seems to flow better than Westfieldian. I would say Westfielder.
That seems to be everybody's choice.
Yeah.
It seems to flow better.
I'm finally getting down to the bottom of this, I think. All right. Excuse me. I've got 3 minutes, Mary Ann, for you to get up on what I call your soapbox. This when you get to address the fine folks of Westfield and implore them for one of their votes on November 5th.
I guess, okay, my soapbox. How tall is my soapbox? I would hope that since my promise or my mission from the beginning when I ran for office back in 2013 or whenever that was, I'd also come back from a walk across the state to fight for climate and environmental justice because of what we were experiencing in Westfield too, and I wanted to experience what other people had to say across the state. I like working with the people. This part I don't like. So I promised that I would be there and represent them and their concerns and hopefully also encourage them and show them the path how they can actually be their own spokesperson. I think people that are in this city and there are things that are happening in their area, ward, or even that might impact the city as a whole, that they should have a seat at the table. Anything that's going to impact their quality of life or where they live. That you don't always get everything you want, but sometimes when you get people talking together, I'm a firm believer in problem solving, and that you get people in a room in a non-judgmental atmosphere where people throw things out, brainstorm to solve a problem. If you have people focused on a problem instead of pointing fingers at people to say that you are the problem, that we can get things done. And I've experienced that over the last couple of years working in the ward, and I hope that the residents that I have worked with, I get calls and they know that I am a phone call and an email away. I answer and respond to what their issues are, and I try to help them work it out and get them connected with the departments or whoever is in the city that addresses their particular problem that they're having. And I hope they realize that I will be there and that I will be responsive to what their concerns are all the time. So if that is what they need, or is that is what is important to them, I would be honored to be elected again to continue the work that I have been already doing. I've got some unfinished business that I would like to continue working on for these residents, and also to start giving them a way to become a part of the government that serves them.
Very quickly, can I ask my question?
Yes, you may.
I do always ask this for the counselors that are running for a particular ward. What area is Ward 1 encompassing?
Ward 1, well, if you drove up toward the green bridges, the twin bridges, right? Mm-hmm. And you cross over those bridges, and you're on North Elm Street, everything to the left of North Elm Street, and as you travel north toward the Turnpike and toward Southampton Road, everything to the left is Ward 1. First part of it is Ward 1B, and somewhere out there in the hinterland, it crosses over to 1A. 1A is along Southampton Road. The bulk of 1A are along Southampton Road.
That answers my question.
All right. Years ago, a lot of that area was 3, wasn't it? Do you remember that?
They did some I think before I got on city
up off of Montgomery Road. I remember when I was in school, it was 3.
Well, they had done some. I think they do some reorganization all the time, just try to make some of the wards equal in population. Because just before I got on, I think Southampton Road. I think the other side of Southampton Road, across the street where the cemetery is, and those streets up there were Ward 1, and Holyoke Street might have been the line that separated Ward 1 from Ward 6, but then they moved it over, because I had people thought they were still Ward 1 when I first started running.
So the ward is mostly residential, some business?
It's residential, industrial. There's some agricultural land up there. There's a lot of. I took somebody on a ride with me around Ward 1, and they said, "Wow, this is a huge. This is huge. It covers a lot of territory. It does."
Marianne Babinski, I want to thank you for coming in and
Very
spending
welcome.
a little bit of time with us.
Thank you so much.
This is great, and I'm sorry I went on forever, but I can tell I'm passionate about some of the things that have been going on up in Ward 1 and helping those people.
Excellent. Instead of cutting to a quick break and then wrapping things up, I'll just chat with Kathy here for a minute or two.
Chat we can. Don't forget.
Chatty Kathy.
That we do have a show coming up this weekend at the Westfield Theater Group, a department of the Westfield Women's Club. It is Murder Among Friends. It is a comedy, but it is adult-oriented. And then not this Saturday, but next Saturday, if you have any children, grandchildren, or you yourself like a good, funny ghost story, please come down to the Blue Umbrella Books, where I will be reading Hobknuckles. Every year, Hobknuckles comes to our window and peers in. But this year would be different. This year, I am going to dance with Hobknuckles. Come on down, 12 o'clock, Blue Umbrella Books. Beep. This message will delete.
The act going on at the Women's Club. What time is that?
It starts at 7:30. We've had a bit of a glitch for those of you people out there that call in with your reservations. Our phone lines are down. We are in the process of repairing them, but do not despair. Come on down. There will be tickets at the door. It won't be a problem.
So folks can go down to Pumpkin Fest and have dinner at one of our great downtown establishments, and then walk right over and see a show.
Absolutely. Come on over. We'll fix you up. It is the day of Pumpkin Fest. It's going to be a great day. Lots of things going on in the city of Westfield that we should be proud of.
I'll be there.
Next week, 3 interviews on Tuesday. Then Tina has 2 interviews, I think, on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Then the following week, 3 more interviews. And then Tina, I believe, has 2. Okay. And then the following week after that, we have 3 more.
Wow. It is a busy time.
Yeah. And then that brings us up to the election, November 5th. Also, there are going to be ward, school committee and ward forums held at the school committee at the senior center. There will be a ward forum or an at-large forum at the Tech Academy. Because we're anticipating a lot of people for that one.
The upper campus?
The upper campus, the old high school, the auditorium.
Westfield High.
Yeah, Westfield High. No, not anymore.
I'm in the
wait a minute,
school.
Smith Ave Elementary.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I'm in the trade school.
Trade school. Westfield normal school, okay?
Oh, God.
All right, do you
I
want to
won't
go back?
that
Well,
far.
St. Mary's High is now in the trail.
That's right.
Yeah, the old
St.
trade
Mary's
school.
is in the trade school. It was on the 3rd floor.
And then there will be a mayoral debate up at Westfield State University. So we do have these forums coming up. On top of what we're doing here, and everything that we're doing here, once all of the interviews are done, I'm going to splice them all together, and we're going to run them on Channel 15, and we'll also get the address out on social media for the YouTube, Channel 15 YouTube location for it.
Quick question: is there a schedule out where all of these are listed? All of the debates and forums.
There's been something in the local paper, I thought.
Okay, good.
As we get a little closer, I may make note of it on my own social media page. Also, those forums, along with the mayoral forum, both those council and the council ward and at large, we're going to be taping those.
Okay.
So we'll be getting those up on Channel 15 as well as the Channel 15 YouTube page. So, with a little bit of time left before the actual election on November 5th, there's going to be plenty of time now for you to find out a little bit more about the candidates in this election, especially at these forums that are going to be held at the Senior Center, at the Tech Academy here, because there's going to be a little bit of time beforehand for the meet and greet. They factored that in. So pay attention to the newspaper and the social media for the schedules for all that. November, we've got, we're back to a normal show, but the first November,
Did you
Tuesday,
say back to normal?
Back to normal almost. We'll have an election day rundown. We're going to do handicapping, but we're not going to announce who we're handicapping. We're just going to fill out a form, and then the following week, we'll just see who came closer to predicting everything without us actually saying who will be who, because we have to remain fairly imbalanced here.
We are unbalanced. I will give you that.
And normal is.
Be careful.
And then back in November, we'll have Chef back in. I'm going to bring in some more weird food for sampling. We got Making the List that we'll play towards the end of the week. Also, we're going to be doing the fundraiser again, or not the fundraiser, the food drive again down here at the Tech Academy the Monday before Thanksgiving. So we're going to be broadcasting live as we do each and every year for folks in the area to bring in things for to make a Thanksgiving dinner. I'm looking up at the clock, and Pete almost gave me the stink eye there. I am just about out of time. Thank you once again, ladies. Thanks, my listeners and viewers. I'll catch you next week.
Thank you.
Bomba-dee-da, 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 bomba-dee-da,
Until
bomba-dee-da,
we meet
bomba-dee-da,
again.
bomba-dee-da,
Happy trails to you.
bomba-dee-da, bomba-dee-da,
Keep smiling
bomba-dee-da,
until then.
Who cares about the clouds when we're together? Just sing a song and think about sunny weather.
Happy trails to you till we meet again.